Hi, I'm Jim Ojala, writer, director, creature, creator of the eco-horror film Strange Nature, and you are watching Without Your Head.
All right, and welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil.
I'm Treacherous Trista.
Right, and we did not give him a cool name, but he has a cool name anyways. We have David Bigelow on the line from Making the Monster and a lot of other cool things. It's cool to have you here.
Oh, thanks very much. I'm really excited to be on the show.
Very good. If you did have a cool name, is there any D word we could add to it? Dangerous Dave, maybe? Deadly Dave? We'll think about it by the end of the show.
Sure, sounds good. Let's.
Right.
I'm sure by the end of the process we'll have something.
So you're currently you were at Jaws Fest this weekend.
Well, we're here at on Martha's Vineyard, and the actual Jaws Fest or any of these events are no longer happening. The virus canceled, unfortunately, the ability to have a reunion, which was going to come today here on the vineyard, or yesterday rather. And Joe Alves was going to be out here signing his new book with Greg Nicotero, and there was going to be a new exhibit at the Martha's Vineyard Museum, but unfortunately that was closed because of the virus. So no events here on the island really to speak of in terms of any, I think many cities can attest to that being what their schedules look like now too.
Mm-hmm. But so you're on Martha's Vineyard. You're saying before we went live, there's a lot of seals out there, and I saw on Facebook that there's shark warnings.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely are getting more shark warnings here. There's signs now at every beach on the South Shore that says, swim at your own risk. There are great whites in these waters. Nice little picture of a 12-foot great white, looking intimidating. So it's a problem here. It's unfortunate because I grew up on these beaches and was never afraid, and nobody ever had this problem. But because of the shark problem, since the seal population exploded on Cape Cod and the islands, this is where we find ourselves.
Yeah, which is obviously it's unfortunate, but it is a weird coincidence that we're here to talk about making a monster.
Yes, no, we don't shy away from admitting there's a little bit of life imitating art and so forth going on lately. So it's all very surreal in some ways.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, you were an extra or a background actor in the original Jaws.
That's correct. I was so I grew up here in the 70s, came here around 73. And so 74, the film Jaws came to Martha's Vineyard, and Universal Studios took over the whole island, basically, or the way it looked to most people, and started using locals and casting and everything like that. My drama teacher at Oak Bluffs Elementary School happened to be Lee Fierro, who plays Mrs. Kintner in Jaws. And she's the one everybody remembers slaps Roy Scheider, and everybody believes it was 20 times or 30 times that they did that take. It was a lot, but it wasn't as high as a lot of people reported to be. But she basically invited me and my classmates to come down to the beach on the day that they were shooting, which was early May, late April. I can't remember the exact date, but the water was not warm yet. The water doesn't get warm here off the island till really July. So we were a couple of months ahead of that, and they needed to shoot these sequences. But it was a very, it was a really interesting day. I'll say that.
Is that what spawned your interest in Jaws, or did that come later?
Well, honestly, and this goes for a lot of kids in 1970s, I think that, with Jaws began a love affair with cinema that was really quite impressive, because all of a sudden with Jaws and then Star Wars 2 years later, and then Return, all these other projects that basically, Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, Jaws started this love affair of cinema with many people around the world because it was such an incredible time in filmmaking. It was a new renaissance out of the studio system, and with some real auteurs like Spielberg and De Palma and Lucas and Coppola and all these other directors. So I think I was just caught up in it because of timing. The fact that I was in Jaws briefly as an extra and saw what the project was like to, and finally was terrified when it came out, was really revealing to me about how movies can move you. And I think, I became interested in the process. I didn't want to be an actor. That wasn't my goal at all. But certainly I wanted to know more about filmmaking and storytelling, because here on the Vineyard, Jaws looked like it was going to be a flop. and there was all these problems with it. And we did see the shark out in the open. It didn't look scary. And that film completely seduced you into the thrill ride of Jaws, the terror that's in that. So a lot of us from the island were really surprised to see what they turned around. It wasn't just a well-made movie. It's like one of the best made movies of the last 50 years as far as coming out from Hollywood and creating a blockbuster film.
Yeah. I mean, it's credited as the first blockbuster, first summer blockbuster.
Yeah, I think it started an industry, and Making the Monster, the story that we're trying to tell, is really about the fact that it made the monster movie. It made the monster career. It made a lot of people, you can start with basically, they made the shark that made the movie Jaws work. And our project is really reflecting, that it's a monster, it became the monster for many things, many directions, many careers. And we still have the blockbuster summer film today, thanks to Jaws.
Mm-hmm. So, Making the Monster, if you give people an idea, you kind of explain there, but, what is it going to be? It's not a feature film. It's going to be a series.
Correct. So the current, we played around with a bunch of different formats that we wanted to try out. Feature film was an obvious contender for, let's do a feature about the making of Jaws, docudrama style. We like to describe it as the Apollo 13 of the making of Jaws. You saw Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon in that capsule, and they played real people, and we want to do the same sort of treatment story-wise for that, just about the making of Jaws. But we wanted to distinguish ourselves because a lot of people have seen making of Jaws stories in documentary. There's probably 5 really good ones, or ones that are more popular that people are aware of. They're all documentaries. They're all interviews with the crew and some of the cast and so forth. And that's all very revealing, but nobody's dramatized it. And I think dramatization of this particular story, with how incredible what happened on Martha's Vineyard was, because it was more challenging than just the sharks not working. That's what's really interesting about this story. So we wanted to make this, we realized that in order to fit 9 months of production plus the huge blockbuster success of the film into a story, you had to do it episodically and over 5, 6, maybe 7 hours. So we basically landed on a limited series of 6 episodes. They're going to move quickly. They're going to be very energetic because we have a lot of ground to cover, even for 6 hours of television for this story. And it's going to basically pay tribute to what the crew did. We're not very interested in telling the same stories that a lot of these documentaries have, where Spielberg and Chapman and Gilmore and others who were intimately involved in the picture, in that, immediately around the camera crowd, to us is not as interesting as the guys that were maybe back there painting the sets and getting the shark moved and moving the special effects people working, climbing in and out of the shark day after day. So I think that there's a lot of stories that are both those stories and Martha's Vineyard locals who were a big part of the making of Jaws, and actually in some cases saved the production because of their ingenuity on the ocean that they knew how to handle, and Hollywood had no clue because they had never come off the set, the studio lot to do this. Yes, Making the Monster, it's going to be a 6-part docudrama series, really heart of soul of the crew and what they accomplished, and how we got this film that everybody still seems to go crazy about every summer.
Mm-hmm. How much research did you have to do to, get those stories?
Well, the thing that's really important, and what we took on right away, was filming interviews with the crew that worked on the film. So we made relationships with and then visited Joe Alves, the production designer, the designer that you'll be talking to at 1:00 today. Again, a really wonderful guy and has a wealth of information about what it was like to work on Jaws still. To this day, he knows all the information. And then Calicord, Carl Gottlieb, Kevin Pike, Andy Stone, the DGA trainee that was on the project, out with the boats for most of the time. So it was really, interviews are really where a lot of that comes from. And then there's a book called Memories from Martha's Vineyard, which is by Matt Taylor and Jim Beller, and he partnered on that project. And they developed a whole chronological series of, when was what shot where, who were the players. So the roadmap of knowing where people were and what was going on during the shoot of Jaws is actually fairly well established. But you're going to watch a story that the characters are what's going to suck you in. That's our hope, is that you love these characters and the moment by moment trials and tribulations of the production crew of Jaws their story will be exciting because it's fraught with problems and dilemmas and challenges that they have to rise above. But at the end of the day, you really love these characters and enjoy watching their stories unfold. And that's what I think any TV series, even if it's limited, they do a good job of doing. So that's our plan with Making the Monster.
Where are you in terms of production? Because I'm excited to see it when I can.
I'm happy to hear you're excited to see it. It's a project we want excitement around, and I think that the more that we see the excitement, we know we're onto something here. It's the right kind of project to do. Currently we're in pre-production development. Most everybody working in production studios is shut down because of COVID. And so in many ways, we're all sort of limited in our ability to respond to wanting to move things forward. One of the things that we're doing now, the other project that we will hopefully have a chance to talk about, I think is a way to sort of bridge those two periods of time when we'll be back working on Making the Monster. But what can we do now? And what can we do to tell a positive story? So, yes, the answer is there's no definite date of when this series is going to basically be available to the public, unfortunately. And I think that most people who are smart right now are saying, really can't know until there's a vaccine available and we have a sort of a long range plan what's going to happen at that point. For us as a country, I think we're all just sort of trying to, hold on there until we get to the place where we know what we're all doing, 6 months from now, which is hard to see right now.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the other project, and that's the rebuilding of the Orca.
Yes, correct. The return of the Orca project is something that has kind of been born out of serendipity because of this project, Making the Monster. We acquired a boat a number of years ago that was more or less going to be turned into the Orca for the sake of the television program. Because if you're going to tell the story of the making of Jaws, Orca is going to be in probably 3 or 4 episodes, because so much production happened out on the ocean. And we needed the boat, so we got the boat, and we were trying to figure out exactly what to do with it, and knowing we had time that we were going to be spending waiting for the project to really, materialize. And now, because of COVID, it's even farther off. So what our plan was is we created this project, Return of the Orca. You can see the poster image of it up there that we're using to sort of tease what we're up to. And the project is to create the boat, recreate as loyally as we can to the original. We have Chris Crawford, who was the builder of the original in 1974, hired by Joe Alves. And we have Joe Alves himself, who is going to be help with art direction and work generally safely from home. We don't want him flying to Martha's Vineyard and thinking he needs to be involved at, Joe's advanced age. And we want him to be ability to collaborate even if he's going to be 3,000 miles away. Mm-hmm. So, it's an exciting project because a lot of people, and it has been gone for decades. And problematically, interestingly enough, nobody's done it yet, which is what I find interesting. It's a boat. It's not like trying to say, well, I want to build the Millennium Falcon in my backyard.
Right.
Well, a little harder to do the Millennium Falcon than take a boat and make it look like Orca, in my opinion, anyway. So it's surprising nobody's done it to this point, but we want to bring the Orca back, and we want to use it for a couple of different purposes. One of the main purposes, we've teamed up with Wendy Benchley's foundation. She's on the board of directors. The foundation Beneath the Waves basically is a nonprofit about marine research. It's CEO and chairman Adrian Gallagher. He's been really helpful in getting us sort of started on that relationship together. And they want to do research from the vessel, marine research in the area for sharks and other ecology. Because we have a shark problem off Martha's Vineyard now in the Cape, and there was a fatality 2 summers ago. I hope that's the last, but the only real defense in being able to be prepared for sharks now in our waters all over this area is education. We need to be educated about when sharks feed, where they feed, what are the warning signs, and understand if there's going to be a change in the pattern of the sharks that are there. And the other part of what the Orca will be is going to be a place we want to give kids on Martha's Vineyard in a place called Camp Jabberwocky the opportunity to get free boat rides and enjoy the ocean once in a while. I grew up on Martha's Vineyard. I feel a real connection to it, and I would really love to see, something good happening to the island because of the boat being there. Ultimately the $1 million question of this whole thing is, can other people get on it? Of course, we're going to, we want the boat to be self-sustaining. And so if we're able to basically set up as a legitimate tour operation and have people be able to enjoy the Orca who just love the film and want to be aboard her again, we want to make that available. So it really feels like a great confluence of both charity and support and research and enjoyment for, people who just love the film.
It was weird because I saw when I was looking up about the original Orca that Spielberg he has a little short video where he talks about like someone they just like destroyed it and threw it away, like because he used to come and visit it every few years, and it was kind of remarkable that someone would destroy and just toss away something from one of the most iconic films.
Absolutely, I agree 1,000% with you, Neil, and I think that that there's a lot of people who wonder why did all these sharks get like thrown away, and these things from a classic film that would be almost priceless today to some people. And the Orca was one of those kind creations that was unfortunately left to fester in the water of a backlot lake in Los Angeles where the Jaws ride was. You go by and the blue tram cars and the shark would pop out of the water at you and give you a little thrill. So that boat was basically, left and neglected. It was starting to sink a little bit in that lake, and finally the dry, rotten termites got to it, and they just tossed it away. And Spielberg was upset. He used to go on the Orca years after the film had wrapped. He had already done Close Encounters, and he was moving on to E.T., and would sit on that boat and just shake. You just go there and get the movie Jaws out of his system, which was so traumatic. He said that he wanted to build another one because he wants it back there, but who knows if he's got some more work to do with, shaking off the emotional scars of Jaws.
Yeah. It's pretty wild that, all the things he's done that, that the movie would still have that effect on him.
Yeah, I think that the timelessness of the film's appeal is what's so incredible. It's hard to even encapsulate that in a definitive statement of why. I think that there's many things to it that make the film work. I mean, as an action adventure thriller, as a family film, as a collection of characters. To me, Jaws is like Fargo is for North Dakota. The sensibilities of the local people of Fargo and conveyed by the Coen brothers in that movie is so strong. And the same thing happens in Jaws. We get this real rich understanding of a local people and what they're like. And that's what they shot so many extras from the vineyard in speaking roles. So they did get some real legitimate, people from the area.
Yeah. And like you said, what genre do you really fit Jaws in? I mean, some people here would consider a horror movie, but it's it could be a drama. It could be, all sorts of different genres. And also, because I like to watch old Siskel and Eberts, because I grew up watching it, and I'll watch them on YouTube. And it's interesting that there's so many movies, even big movies, are up for Academy Awards and stuff that you don't even think about at all. You never hear anyone talk about when you watch those old shows. But then there's movies like Jaws that always finds a new audience, not even just people who watched it at the time.
Right. Well, yeah, I think there's a certain amount of people, new generations are discovering Jaws because of their parents and other friends. But I still, walking around here on the vineyard and in other places, I still see little 5-year-old boys with Jaws shirts on, the blue iron-on looking pattern. It's still classically hilarious to know that this film is out there in such large numbers, and the kids have all sort of looked the same for decades. It's like there's always a 5-year-old bopping around the beach with a Jaws shirt on and has that classic poster image on it. So I love that permanence that it holds, Yeah.
And it's come up here a bunch in the chat already about people saying, watching Jaws made them afraid to swim. And I know my mom has said the same thing. Like, I remember when I was a kid and we'd go fishing and she wouldn't want to go because, she was afraid of the water because she liked Jaws so much. And it's interesting that has such an effect on people. Even came up in I was part of a documentary yesterday, and the actress said that was a movie that inspired her to act, and she doesn't like to take. I say she doesn't like to take a bath. I'm say she doesn't like to wash herself, but she doesn't like to take a bath because she thinks of Jaws.
Yeah, a lot of people have an irrational fear of the water after the film sits with them for a while.
Yeah, it's great. How was that for you to be I know it's not necessarily a big part, but just that you're in the movie and the movie comes out. What was that like for you as a kid?
Honestly, it was an experience that I really had no idea about what it was like at 5 years old, how many people expect to be in a film. And it was a very serendipitous, sudden thing that my parents weren't looking to get me into films or anything like that.
Right.
It was just an activity on the island. And my teacher, Lee, was really, I really liked her a lot, and I thought that she was really sweet. So it was nice for me to know that she would be down there, because I wouldn't know anybody else. But having been in the film has been a part of, realizing there's artifice in cinema. And I think that's why I got interested in filmmaking, because I saw the film being produced and I was in the film, but I know that the film that I expected, like I said before, isn't the one that we got. We got a really scary, effective movie. And so in many ways, it's I think I felt like I understood movie making is about these kinds of tricks. What we watched on the beach was, looked like a big disorganized mess of people running around and things, and but you realize what it's there for is to get these shots for this director to make and edit an incredible film. I'm in the film for 6 or 7 frames, like not even a full second. So it's not something that I really feel a great deal of like, oh, I can't wait to see my scene. I'm in less than a shot. So, but it's a great little, and I hadn't thought about it for many, many years until I met some people in Boston. John Campopiano, who is I work at WGBH in Boston, the PBS station, and so does he. And we work in similar areas, and he just learned that I was in Jaws, and he brought his section of the Orca hull that he owns, that Susan Murphy sold him from the vineyard. And he's a huge Jaws fan. So it was just a weird coincidence that I worked with him at the same place. And then we became fast friends. And he actually introduced me to a lot of the people that I'm working with now on Making the Monster and Return of the Orca.
Yeah. Is Return of the Orca, is that going to also be like a something people could watch, or is it just going to be you're going to make it?
Yes, so we're going to be launching our campaign at some point soon in a more official capacity. If anybody wants to go and sort of just be kept in the loop on that, you can go to returntotheorca.com.
We'll do the rest of the interview with the cast.
Okay, David. This is backup David.
Hello, David.
Oh, okay.
Very cute.
Okay, he's back. You're fired.
Sorry. Hey, Dave, can you cover my back? I need it now.
So you probably should explain that again. Your return of the Orca.com.
Yeah, my apologies.
No worries.
The Return of the Orca project, we do want to have a documentary. We do want to be able to make it so that you can actually. Guys, sorry, viewers. I should be more technically on my game.
It's not your fault.
It's okay. We had your stand-in.
Right.
Great. But did it get out? We're going to do a documentary about building the boat.
Very good.
Make it short and sweet.
Uh-huh.
And Neil will link all the info, right?
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. So you can find out all the information.
Great.
So, Joe Alves, who we're going to have on, in a little bit. So from what I understand, he was on for all the interviews. He was there in person.
Oh, for the interviews that we had for Making the Monster?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So we interviewed Joe. We actually flew out to Joe's home in California and conducted all of our interviews in the Los Angeles area at his house. So he generously offered up his place to be able to do the shoot. And it was a huge help. Stage space can be kind of expensive, so it was nice to have a place we could do this. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, he's obviously still very interested in Jaws and talking about the shark and then just the making of it and everything around it.
Yes, Joe is really. I think that first of all, he loves design and he loves artwork and things that are beautiful, and he acknowledges that Jaws has a timeliness that is hard to nail down completely. Jaws has, everywhere Joe flies around the world, he'll tell me, he's got all these other credits to his name: Escape from New York, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, memorable films. And yet Jaws is what everybody wants to talk about anywhere. Mm-hmm. When he goes around the planet, it's always Jaws as the centerpiece conversation. So he gives the fans what they want.
Yeah. John Campopiano, is he also is he involved in Making the Monster as well?
John, yeah, John has been involved really since the beginning, the inception of the project. We both have day jobs that we are doing, our work on as usual. So this project has, over the 2 years it's been actively moving, has been, not always a full-time effort. But it's been able to, pick up steam over time and really develop in a very deliberate way. But there's a lot of other people that are involved with making the monster and bringing it together and seeing things happen. I couldn't do it all by myself, certainly. Sure. So I have a great team that I work with. But John will be, working with me, right on the inside track of the stories that we're trying to script around for the project.
Mm-hmm. Now, and he's a big horror fan. Are you a horror movie fan? It's okay if you're not. We won't kick you off or anything.
I'll take that as a no.
Sorry, everyone, for the technical problems. It's no one's fault. It's just.
I love horror films. I love all sorts of films, but horror films, for example, Alien to me is one of my classic, wonderful horror films that I love. And it followed in the footsteps of Jaws. So in many ways, True. It was I think it was pitched literally as Jaws in space. I think, Ari Aster doing Hereditary these days and Midsommar and so forth. There's some really incredible people working in horror right now that are bringing to form a scare that isn't just jump scares, that really is about getting you, seduced into being ready to be scared and terrifying you, and not just sort of like hitting you with fast moving, things that you didn't expect, a cat jumping out of the closet onto your chest, those kinds of things, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love horror films. I just, I never kind of classify myself as a horror fan. I love great films and television shows that, horror, well, not in rom-coms or anything, but, usually thriller, drama, horror, anything in the serious, side of filmmaking.
So what is your background in filmmaking?
Oh, okay. My background, I started, when I was in college, I decided that I was going to learn more about the filmmaking or video process because I was going to pursue it as an editor's career. Editing to me seemed to be one of the coolest things that you could do for filmmaking. It's because whether the film really comes together in the edit room. And that part of the process, I think, is really exciting because you shoot for so long and you don't know what you've got sometimes until the edit room. So I learned Avid editing and became an intern or worked for free on films as an editor, an assistant editor, and finally started getting real work doing a lot of corporate and industrial stuff in the Boston area. Moved on from that into more creative ventures, working with filmmakers and trying to put together some fun projects. One of the projects was a parody of the movie Seven, where we used the Seven Dwarfs instead of the Seven Deadly Sins as an idea.
I have to say,
and got recognized. It's funny. It's just basically a short parody trailer, really. But the AFI, the American Film Institute, recognized it and flew us out for an award, and it was a lot of fun. So we got the idea. Yeah, there's some stuff that we can put something together people will actually enjoy watching. And then I've owned my own company and worked in entertainment, did work on music tours, doing LED video for concerts for Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, James Taylor, a number of different touring artists, and really enjoyed that work. I did that for about 7-8 years, working with lighting designers for tours and making video that complemented their lighting package. And then got into public television and started working for the Outpost at WGBH. And I'm an online editor and colorist for series like Frontline, the investigative news program, Nova, the science series, American Experience, the documentary film series. So a number of different project areas that, I feel like I've got a really good now build up of a couple of different industries and different media types. But it all comes down to knowing how to use a computer after somebody shot great footage to turn in something that looks good and sounds good. Mm-hmm. And so those skills have definitely served me well, which is now, we're talking about, 26 years ago, I started on the editing path, and now I'm more in the creative oversight, but I understand post-production. So when it comes to any of these projects getting finished, I'm going to be in the editing room working with people, and I know my way around that room, and it'll help to get the stories done well. Because being the writer and creator of a project like Making the Monster, and then having the post-production experience to see it through, kind of really sculpt it, I think is going to be an incredible opportunity for me to be able to see, what a lot of people don't necessarily get. A lot of writer directors are not editors who understand that world. Some of them are, but usually it's project from the point of view of writing and directing.
Mhm.
So
when I've talked to filmmakers who are also editor, like by trade, like a lot of them say like they kind of it helps them when they know what to film because they kind of edit the movie, while they're doing that, while they're shooting it, or at least have in their idea in their mind what they're gonna do.
yeah, and I think that it's funny because there's this trope that is used in filmmaking that says there's three screenwriters in a film. The screenwriter who writes it, the director who shoots it with their own eye and now has kind of rewritten it, and then the editor who is the final writer who brings the story together in a way that the footage actually supports. The mind's eye to see a project as great as you imagine it, and then actually be able to shoot the things that you imagine, then edit it together so it looks just the way you thought, I think is fairly rare. It always matures and it always adapts into something different.
AJ wants to know where can you see the trailer for the Seven Dwarves?
Oh, I don't. That project is sitting on a desk, collecting shelf. I'm afraid right now. I'll have to look at a way to share that later. I appreciate the interest for something nobody's cared to see in probably 15 years.
I'm all about it. He also asked earlier, what are your thoughts on? They always talk about a Jaws remake. If you have any opinion, if they should remake it, or what should be done with that.
Yeah, I'm of the camp that says don't remake it. You don't need to do it. It's not a perfect film. It's a really well-made film. It's not a perfect film, and I think contemporizing it with putting Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Matt Hooper or something just won't be the way to go. And frankly, there's that story has been told. It's sort of like talking about remaking Breaking Bad. Don't think we needed to remake Breaking Bad. I think we got a perfect show that we needed out of it. So yeah, I think it's leave Jaws alone. If you want to expand the storytelling and get back into making movies that continue the storyline, by all means, there's plenty of Brody grandchildren out there to possibly create some more Jaws stories around. But let the original be what it is, which I think is a perfectly great film by itself.
I agree. Tristan, do you have something?
I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind repeating where people could find you building the Orca, since you had cut out earlier.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So if you just go to, returnoftheorca.com, you can sign up to get on our mailing list, and we'll be able to provide information as it develops.
You mentioned like there's already documentaries about the making of Jaws. So when you started doing the interviews, to make the dramatization, was there anything like you yourself learned about, Jaws, about the making of Jaws that you didn't have any idea about?
Yes, there's stories about the sabotage that happened on the set of Jaws. People deliberately sabotaging the production. I think some people wanted to delay their progress so they'd stick around on Martha's Vineyard and continue to make money for them. I think others were, just trying to be troublemakers. But there definitely was sabotage. It was overcome, and, there was 150 to 175 people on the crew of Jaws there at any one time with security as they needed it. So, they could handle some problems if they needed to, and they did. However, the other examples I would share is, the fact that the Teamsters basically made everybody take their cars everywhere, including Joe Alves, who basically wanted to ride his bike around the vineyard and not be driven in a car. So
interesting. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll ask him about that, or maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. I guess it's.
Yeah, Joe will certainly. If you ask Joe what it was like to ride his bike during the making of Jaws, he'll probably chuckle and say, "I know what this is in reference to."
Yeah. So I know it's not happening right now, but do you normally go to the Jaws Fest every year?
Well, just a point of order. The only thing is that there isn't a Jaws Fest any longer. There was one in 2005. And then another in 2012. Mm-hmm. and that's the only one. They haven't had them since, but they did celebrate in limited amounts the 45th anniversary of the film's release. And so there actually is the old Sculpin Gallery put together an exhibit of Joe's work. And it went from the 4th till the 10th. So they did have a setup down there at the old Sculpin Gallery. And the old Sculpin Gallery was the building that they based Quint's shack around. Joe saw this gallery in Edgartown and decided he would go ahead and build Quint's shack to look like it. So
that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So when you're rebuilding the Orca, do you start with like a boat and then try to make it look like the Orca, or are you starting from scratch?
Yeah, so the idea is that we already have a boat named the Lydia, and she is a similar boat to the Orca that was basically, these boats are Nova Scotia lobster fishing boats, really. They're work boats. And usually they don't have such as a time, a type, I should say, that they are really, created for. They don't have a model and a make per se. And so getting an exact duplicate of the Orca is actually a pretty difficult task. But we have a boat that's pretty much close enough to make sure that we're in the neighborhood. I don't know how much of that got. I think you froze up a little. Did you get most of that, Neil?
I think I got all of it. I think. Yeah. I don't think we froze up at all on our end, so it was good.
Okay, good,
yeah.
Excellent.
It's an important question.
I'm not sure because I'm seeing it here, but I'm not sure how it's happening down there.
Okay, let's say an important question here is where's the best lobster roll in your decision on the Cape or the islands?
There's a restaurant called Nancy's that is in Oak Bluffs that does an excellent lobster roll, and also had Malia Obama work at the stand when the Obamas were down here at one point. So who knows? Maybe she'll be working there when you come over for your lobster roll at Nancy's in Oak Bluffs.
Right.
But yeah, I'll have to give Nancy's that plug.
All right. I've honestly never been to Martha's Vineyard. I feel very bad about that since I live very close to it, but it's probably like blasphemy to live on Cape. Never been to Martha's Vineyard. But
He's very unimpressed by you, Neil.
I know. I think now he's just the other times he was frozen. This time he just quit. He's like, I'm out of here. So besides the Orca, what are you working on? Anything else right now?
Well, I pretty much the two projects between Making the Monster and Return to the Orca have me, my spare time fulfilled pretty well. And I'm actually going to be working on another Frontline starting tomorrow to get on air for next week. So the forward progress on Making the Monster is an ever thing. We are always up to it. And we're currently breaking down all 6 episodes into a form that basically can be, we can sort of plan around. So doing that is going to be a better part of the rest of the summer while the boat project is going on. The boat project we want to have, we want the Orca in the water by, this fall at the latest, and able to, be tested and put out in the water and have her maiden voyage, and then put her in winter storage until, we get back to the following spring. And also a time when hopefully there'll be enough people enjoying the planet in a way that they don't have to run around on masks and socially distance, that hopefully that will make it possible to, enjoy the boat in a better way. We just need to see what time will tell, and hopefully next spring we're in a much better spot than we are now.
Do you have Making the Monster cast? Do you know who are playing the roles?
We have a lot of ideas, and we know who we want to approach, but we are not. We've not really nailed down commitments. It's very far in advance. I think that we're at least probably a year out from any kind of production beginning. But we need the time to really fully flesh out the scripts and start to secure the resources, because shooting here on Martha's Vineyard is going to be a challenge. It's not, it's where they shot the original, and you need to work really carefully with the people of Martha's Vineyard to stage a large-scale television project. Shooting a documentary here with a couple crew, a camera people, sound, and so forth, and a few producers isn't like trying to mount a $45 million television series. So in many ways, we're going to be a much larger presence, probably, hopefully similar to the way Jaws was, but we'll try to be a lot more, considerate, especially of locals, and not slow down their roads and not take up, lock down too many areas of where they live. But having been here, I understand what people are like here and what it is this is not a theme park. It's not a place to come see Jaws locations for everybody. It's their home. And so we need to tread carefully and be really respectful of people, because we are going to be location shooting and not really on a studio. Maybe some things on a studio. Certain sets can be built on a studio, and you shoot and you control and you light for that. But other things are just going to be like, we want to be on the beaches of Martha's Vineyard and Menemsha and in Edgartown and so forth, because a lot of these places still look very similar to the way they did in 1974. It's incredible. Martha's Vineyard doesn't age a great deal, even in almost 5 decades.
Yeah. Well, I live in Sandwich, and so it's a pretty old looking town. So I understand the area. AJ says he loves your passion and take on the project, and he can't wait to see it.
All right, I appreciate that. Thanks, AJ.
So are a lot of the original locations still there in Martha's Vineyard?
Yes, there's plenty of original locations. Some things are, sorry, where did I put my water? Some things are very much looking exactly the same. There's architecture in Edgartown where the police station, Brody's police station, Vaughn Realty, let Polly do the printing square where you see the bank behind Brody and Hendricks. Those all look pretty much identical the way they did before. Our group, I should say, one other project that we did that, I can't, sometimes I just forget about when I'm talking about making the Monster and Return of the Orca, is we did the Ultimate Jaws location guide. And so there is a Google Earth project that we created where you can go online and enjoy a 3D interactive map completely free and see all the locations of Jaws and Jaws 2 and Jaws 4. 3 was shot in Florida. So you just Google Jaws location guide or Ultimate Jaws location guide. You'll see it come right up, and you can enjoy it and use it here if you ever come for the day and want to see all the sites.
Yeah, I would definitely like to do that. That'd be very cool. Now, let's see. I'm going to look at my phone here. I'm not being rude, but people had posted questions earlier, and it's easier if I look on here. Sure. So actually, when you do cast, I know it's going to be mostly about like behind the scenes productions, but are you going to cast like the main actors and someone to play Steven Spielberg?
Actors and anybody that you're going to recognize from Jaws. And there's some pretty interesting ideas. I can't reveal them all right now because we're in the throes of experimenting with it. But yeah, we will. There'll be a great deal of actual characters who are going to look pretty similar to the people. For example, we're going to have a Joe Alves character, and Joe will be, a guy who looks like Joe Alves. A man of moderate stature. Joe's not a very tight, but has very distinguished features and is quite a personality. So we're really looking forward to being able to cast a person who really represents Joe in the best way.
Mm-hmm. Andre wants to know if the water's cold when you're filming. But I don't know if you guys are actually going to be in the water filming.
We'll be in the water. Just we'll probably try to schedule water shooting, between August and October, so that because the water stays warm here through the fall in October and sometimes even to early November. So, and the tourist season will have died down then. So probably a lot of good shooting for us after everybody has left the island and the water is still warm.
Robert agrees with you. Not only is Jaws scared him, but it started his fascination with movie making.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of people I think that started their careers. I know the people like Bryan Singer and others kind of point to Jaws as why they're filmmakers in the first place.
Yeah, and a lot of people have said about not being able to swim after seeing Jaws.
Yes. And now I'm not able to swim as much because I'm on the island. Now I'm afraid of sharks coming here. So
right. Well, yeah,
it even comes back when you're an adult.
Right. Well, if there's actual warnings for the sharks, it's probably a wise thing.
It's not in irrational fear any longer.
Right. It's not in the bathtub; it's in the actual water.
Right.
Yeah. So, what were the seals like that you get to see? I've actually never seen a seal in person.
There's
Well, that's not
there's
true,
little
actually.
baby ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's little baby ones. There's full-grown adults that look like a man basically swimming through the water in a wetsuit, that are huge, and they come real close to shore. They do come in pretty tight to the beach, which is another reason it's really important to be careful about it, because you don't know if there's any predations being done by any great whites, and that seal is right up there, 15 yards from the sand. That's what we saw, is plenty of them in real close.
Yeah. Were you part of the Coolidge seminar?
Yes, John and I hosted that seminar together.
What was that experience like? I'm a big fan of the Coolidge Corner. Coolidge After Midnight.
Yeah, Coolidge Corner. I mean, I grew up in Brookline. When I left Martha's Vineyard, I moved to Brookline, Mass, and the Coolidge was part of my love affair with movies, continuing having double features and stuff. And it's where I saw Blade Runner for the first time, and a bunch of other movies, Wolfen. Just fun movies. And the Coolidge is, they're still old school. They still have that Art Deco theater I love. It feels so.
Yeah, it's got the big red curtain
corporate.
that opens up when the
big red curtain, 70 millimeter. They'll do 70 millimeter screenings. So I find the Coolidge to be a real treat. It's a diamond in the rough, because we can all go to AMC theaters when we could go to AMC theaters, if not now, obviously. But and it's convenient, and you get these nice seats, and they'll bring you, an overly large Pepsi to your table that you're sitting at in the movie theater. But there's nothing like that feeling of a good old, classic movie house, and not a lot of frills, but, great sound, great picture, and just the building has its own character, and that's what the Coolidge is all about. But yeah, we hosted that virtual seminar because a lot of people are doing it virtually these days, and had a lot of great questions from people related to both what it was like to be here during the filming of Jaws, and why we consider it to be a great film, and what are some of the things that people who maybe don't get it that are like, Jaws is cool, but I don't see why so many people consider it one of their favorite movies. And I think art is subjective, so in some ways it's kind of hard to tell people what they should consider to be great. We all have different tastes. I mean, I think that the Jaws means, again, sometimes intangible things to people of why it's so special to them, and it's hard to express in words really why, because it's so many layers of things, I think, that make Jaws work. Adventure, thriller, being scared, characters you fall in love with. I mean, I think it's just, there's a lot to it. It's not just like, oh, the action is great. There's some films you can just say, great action, great fight choreography, or incredible story, and I think that Jaws was the beginning of learning Steven Spielberg's world, which was fascinating, and much more not as plot driven, but more as like fascination driven. And I think that's what's really cool about it, is that Jaws is fascinating for a couple of reasons. And you started to get into that, and then you had Close Encounters and Star Wars and all these Raiders. So there was this love affair with just like really going all out, fantasy filmmaking, and people enjoyed the hell out of it. So Jaws is in that vein. It's just much more human, I think, of the story.
Mm-hmm. I think it was last year, I went to Coolidge to see 2001: Space Odyssey. I think it was the 50th anniversary. And there was an older gentleman sitting next to me, and he had told me that he went to see the premiere of 2001 50 years ago at the Coolidge, and I just thought that was like so wild that and here he was at the anniversary at the same theater.
Absolutely. No, I think it's so great when you can see people still reconnecting to the films that they love in a public forum again. We can all appreciate movies on VHS or on Beta or or Blu-ray or 4K, but there's something about being able to enjoy it with other people in a movie house that is a different experience than just watching the movie wherever you can get it. I can watch Jaws on my iPad here, but I would far prefer it to be with the company of, a couple hundred other people, and many of them who haven't seen it yet, so that you can get that classic scream when the Ben Gardner head pops out of the bottom of that boat and nobody saw it coming, and just because everybody flips out at that moment in Jaws.
Has what's your like main thing about Jaws? That mean, what does it mean to you?
I think, honestly, to me, Chief Brody's journey as a character, he's an outsider to Martha's Vineyard, or I should say, he's an outsider to Amity, the fictional story, the location in the story Jaws, and he comes with the best of intentions, yet he's being pressured to ignore this shark problem because of the local mayor and his crony businessman. And it's not until the death of Alex Kintner and his mother comes and slaps him, shames him for having basically not dug in his heels when he should have. He knew that there was a shark out there. He knew it was dangerous, but he let people go swimming anyway.
It's amazing how timely and relevant this story is, huh?
It is. It's
his
one of the most
character
copied
evolves.
too. Like after that, like everything copied the idea of we have to keep things going. Not just like with animal movies, but any like natural disaster. And like Trista just said, it's very timely in the last several months.
Yeah, I see a lot of these tropes are used over and over sometimes.
How about you, Trista? What's the main appeal for Jaws for you? Or Jaws?
I mean, for me, something I really, most of my favorite films are films that I just enjoyed for entertainment's sake as a kid, and then as an adult realizing how important the themes are. So I think that really holds true for Jaws. You know, greed is, for lack of a better word, bad, right? So I think Jaws really exemplifies that. I think that's an important theme in the world we're living in today. Yeah. But as a kid, it's just crazy to see the big shark. I mean, it looks so real. It's so scary.
That's a good point, though, I think, because it does affect all you. No matter what age you are, you can watch the movie and enjoy it. You know, even if you don't get some of the subtext of the movie, you can just watch it as a shark movie, or as you know, this movie about three guys bonding. You know, there's lots of things you can get out of the movie, and it's not like it.
Sorry, can you guys still see and hear me? I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
we can now.
Yeah. We can see you, David.
Okay, good. All right. So, any other questions that I can help address?
Let's see. Well, people brought up about what Trista just brought up about it being timely. Brian says Trista's right on about it being timely, and Adri agrees with COVID and everything. So I already said this, but where can people follow the making of the monster?
So we have our social media presence primarily on Making the Monster is on Instagram. So if you go to instagram.com/makingthemonster, all one word, you can find out there about what we've been up to and some really fun facts about the project and the film, obviously the film Jaws. And we also have a Facebook group that has similar content pushed to it. So if you look for Making the Monster on Facebook or Instagram, you'll find it there.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you being on. And I'm really looking forward to seeing both. I want to see the rebuilding the Orca and Making the Monster.
Yes, me too. Very exciting.
Yeah, we're Neil, I think I heard you guys. I think your support is wonderful to have, and we look forward to being able to share this project with people when the time comes. And we think we've gotten a sense from enough people who are excited about what we're doing to say, yeah, this is something they'd like to watch, and we would love to watch it ourselves. That's why we're in the throes of making it and the challenges in doing that, because we think it's worth it, and we think it'll be a story that, you know, Joe, for example, what really wants to see happen. You know, tell the crew story, what they went through on the vineyard. They did a lot of things, you know. I mean, Steven Spielberg directed that film and did a great job, but it took the work of 150 and more other crew to get that film in a place where they were able to shoot what they shot. And that was not an easy task. There's no There was no computer graphics that made Jaws come together. It was completely a blood, sweat, and tears on the ocean for 7 months of filmmaking. And they birthed the real gem, but it was a hard birth, a lot of back labor.
Yeah, and those are people that don't always get credit, so it's good to see their story told.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we're hoping for. Let their stories be shared and honor them for also being part of bringing this film into the fold, which people don't ever seem to get tired of.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. I think Joe.